In an age where algorithms move faster than thought and global events reshape economies overnight, one thing has become constant, and that's uncertainty. And in this environment, the nature of wealth itself is evolving. Wealth today isn't just earned, it's inherited, it's transferred and shaped by values as diverse as the fortunes themselves. In the past decade, we've seen a profound shift in how the ultra-wealthy think. They're not only asking how much do I have, but what does it mean, and what do I want to impact? Hello, this is No Ordinary Wednesday, an Investec Focus Radio podcast where we take a deep, considered look at the forces shaping business, economies and markets. I'm Jeremy Maggs. Today I'm joined by Alexandra Nortier and Marc Romberg, joint heads of wealth management at Investec Wealth and Investment International. And we're going to explore how ultra-high net worth individuals are redefining what wealth means, and how a more human, reflective and values-aligned philosophy of wealth management is emerging in response. To both of you, a warm welcome to No Ordinary Wednesday. So Ali, let's start with you then. Over the past 5 years, ultra-high net worth individuals, like all of us I guess, had to weather profound upheaval, from pandemics to inflation to ongoing geopolitical volatility and extraordinary advances in technology. Do you see any fundamental shift in how they perceive wealth?
Hi, Jeremy. It's lovely to be here with you again. In answering your question, I think that the pandemic specifically did have a profound impact on our clients and ourselves and how we view what wealth means in our lives. Generation X and the rising millennials also ask for more meaning and purpose in their lives than their baby boomer parents before them. The global threat of death during COVID, together with the world shutting down, allowed for deeper contemplation on what we're actually here for and what purpose our wealth is meant to serve. Does it provide for safety for our families and loved ones? Are we actually living our lives to the fullest, given our means? What will our legacy be if anything happens to us? So given that shift we are seeing, we're actually now shifting our approach to wealth management to meet these distinct needs. We want our clients' wealth to now provide a sense of safety, a life of prosperity, and a meaningful legacy for generations to come.
So, Marc, Ali raises some deep philosophical questions there. We also know the limitations of conventional risk profiling. So let's talk a little bit about strategy. So being balanced or conservative, I would suggest, doesn't necessarily capture the full complexity of a client's financial life. So talk to us a little bit about a deeper framework, perhaps, that is needed.
Thanks, Jeremy, and nice to be on the show. Yeah, I think you summed it up well. Historically, we have always seen clients from a risk profile perspective. And are they conservative? Are they balanced? Are they growth-orientated clients? But that doesn't really give a full analysis of them. We're trying to get a much deeper understanding of our clients, what their goals, values, vision, and purpose for their money is. We believe that their finances are a means to achieve these. And whilst we need to be cognizant of the risk they're able to take in order to do this, we can't only be solely focused on the risk profile. Money, in our opinion, is not a means to an end, but rather an enabler for clients to achieve their goals and ensure their values are upheld. Ali alluded to the first question about the COVID pandemic and market shifts. And I think through all market corrections, we see this quite clearly, because often we'll go to our clients and we might say to them, or historically we would have set them a balanced profile. The benchmark was down 12% and we've done really well. We're down only 10%, and clients battle with those concepts because it might mean nothing to them. So we really focus now about understanding our clients and making sure they can measure themselves against their own benchmarks and their own goals, not other benchmarks. So that's a critical shift in terms of how we see our clients and how we manage their money. It's also critical to understand the non-financial components of their wealth, what their goals and values are and what they want their legacy to be.
So, Ali, I was wondering if you could then just expand a little bit on the financial aspects of that framework.
Yeah, so in practice, one could present a conventional wealth management portfolio framed very differently. So the safety need is met with investments in near-term cash to cover short-term income requirements, depending on the client. People actually feel the pain of a loss double than that of an equal gain. And so from a behavioral perspective, Carving out specific funds that make a person feel contained and safe during market pullbacks actually creates much better investment behavior. The prosperity component then covers a client's life requirements until the day they're expected to pass away. This then also better enables for the client's best life to be lived. It could cover meaningful experiences with family and friends. It could enable a healthier life to be lived. It's actually amazing to me how many of our high net worth clients think that they actually don't have enough money to live their best lives. And this type of financial reframing helps them understand it better. The legacy requirement will be invested for the very long term, potentially having the ability to take on more risk in return or make use of structures that are estate duty friendly, but ultimately are positioned for the legacy that a person may want to create.
So let's pick it up, Marc. So this humanized framework, I think, is what we're talking about. Illustrate that for us a little bit further then.
So, Jeremy, before I go there, can I just add one concept to what Ali spoke about earlier with regard to those three components she spoke about? It really creates mental accounting for our clients. So just to explain what mental accounting is. Mental accounting is a concept in behavioral economics that describes how investors categorize, evaluate, and manage money in different mental accounts rather than treating all money as one and as fungible. And mental accounting is one of many ways that your customers and clients can cope with emotions. A colleague of mine, gave a good example when we were going through this process. And the example is Colgate Triple Action toothpaste. I know it sounds weird comparing toothpaste to wealth management, but the example is very pertinent in that, when Colgate launched their Triple Action toothpaste, they had it all as one color. And the consumer couldn't understand how one color toothpaste could do three different things for them in triple action. And when they changed it to three different colors, and it became a best-selling toothpaste because clients could understand that each color had a different action or role to play in the toothpaste. We believe that in our reframing proposition and by ensuring our clients understand the safety component, the prosperity component, and the legacy component, they're able to understand how their portfolio can meet all their financial goals and needs.
Marc, it's the first time in this podcast history that we've had an analogy involving toothpaste and financial wealth, but it's a very interesting one nonetheless.
I thought that might be the case, but I do want Ali to expand on the non-financial components that we spoke about, because that is also critical.
Let's pick that up, Ali.
Yeah, so the non-financial components have been like deeply purposeful work, I think, both for Marc and I when we've actually gone into it. It's really important to consider the non-financial aspects of reframing, which don't pertain to the actual money. I like to call it humanizing wealth management. So a richer life is not just more money. It boils down to what money's for, what's the purpose of why we have money. I often experience clients who've got more than enough funds, but then I meet with them and all they've done since our last meeting is to build more empires. So it's a deeply entrenching conversation exploring with someone what their financial purpose statement is. One needs to establish what their values are, what their best life looks like, what they want to be remembered for. And in doing this work, we've started to provide the scaffolding to have these sorts of conversations with our clients. We've also gone into what clients' money stories are, what actually prohibits them, from experiences with money, either positive or negative, that potentially happened during their childhood or their upbringing, from living out their financial purpose and living out what they actually want to do with their money. And once you bring that all together, you bring out their values, their purpose around money, you come up with a financial purpose statement, and then what actually their money story is. It provides them almost with a North Star of how they want to live out their life. So when you meet with them and you look at what you used to do was just report on the money, if you can start by saying, what is the purpose of the money? How have you lived your life since we last met 6 months ago? Is it in line with your purpose and your values? This starts leading to a much richer conversation with your clients about their lives and their values and their family. Again, very deeply entrenching the relationship.
And just to add to that, Jeremy, in a book, Die with Zero, Bill Perkins describes 3 variables in life. They're health, wealth, and time. And he speaks about one's purpose should be solving for all 3 and creating maximum fulfillment. And that's part of the journey we're on with our clients. We believe wealth management is more than just money management, because wealth is a store for what we value, and that's critical. And we do that and understand that from our client's perspective. I've been in the best measure of wealth, and I think I read this from Morgan House and Psychology of Money. The best measure of wealth is what you have, less what you want. And there's a famous quote from Bob Marley who says, some people are so poor, all they have is money. And that really entrenches in terms of trying to understand a much deeper meaning with our clients of what the money means to them and how they see it in terms of their values, their goals, and their purpose.
And it's all about security and peace of mind, isn't it, Marc? I mean, that humanized framework that you're referring to, that both of you are referring to, will obviously, in the long term, help clients sleep better at night, right?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I mean, as I say, we work with our clients to get a deep understanding of what their real requirements are and what their goals are, ensure their values and their purpose align with these, and ensure they're meeting their priorities and not other people's priorities. Too many people are worried about other people's benchmarks and not their own benchmarks. I think the other thing that we think this will help is it will allow their portfolios to be managed with a much longer term horizon and ensure clients don't get swayed by sentiment or short-term market movements. We know the stats which often show how irrational humans are and that they buy and sell at the wrong time. We believe that by having this framework, we can help our clients avoid these mistakes, which so often have a detrimental impact on their portfolios.
So let's return now to values and the purpose quotient in all of this. We've been speaking about that. Marc and Ali, what are your values and purpose of your wealth then? Ali, let's go to you first.
We've just rolled out this journey with the people who look after our clients, our wealth managers across the country. And I think that to actually go through the experience yourself is very important before you are even able to start these conversations with the families and people that we look after. So when I went through it myself, it helped me narrow down what my values were and why I work, what is the purpose of my money. And when I came up with it, my final purpose statement kind of went as follows. My wealth exists to provide safety, security, and health for myself and my family. It's a tool to support a life rooted in love, freedom, and connection. It enables meaningful experiences and treasured memories with those that I care about the most. And through attaining financial freedom, I really seek to live a life full of meaning, vitality, adventure, and joy. My wealth empowers me to prioritize well-being, embrace spontaneity, and be fully present. At its core, my financial journey is about living with intention, using my resources to uplift those around me, inspire others to live their fullest, healthiest lives, and contribute positively to the well-being of the planet. And, I can't live like that every day, but at least it provides a North Star to guide me when I'm working so hard that I can't see the wood for the trees. And I go back to that statement and I go, what is it all for? And it brings it into life for me so I can bring myself back to my fuller self.
I like that description of a North Star. Marc, I'd be very interested to hear your view on this about purpose and value.
Well, hard to go after Ali, but I think as Ali alluded to, this was a very deep process and a lot of thought. And I think it's iterative. I think you keep on going through yourself and questioning yourself and those. But I'll go through what I came up with in the end, and I hope it's something which I can live to. So my value statement was that the purpose of my wealth is to create the richest life shared with those I care about, rather than focusing on being the richest person. I want to leave my mark wherever I go, to have some fun along the way and help bring joy to others. And importantly, to educate my family about the values I hold dear and enable and empower them to live their fullest and best life without financial worries, thus hopefully continuing my legacy. So that was mine. It's something, once again, now I add to what Ali says, every now and again, you've got to go back to it and say, am I being true to this? And am I living as if it's my North Star? And these are the sort of discussions we want to have with our clients.
This is so interesting. We're going to continue this conversation in just a moment, exploring how artificial intelligence and longevity are reshaping wealth management. But first, a quick celebration. Investec's podcast channel, Focus Radio SA, has been named Best Content Marketing Program in Financial Services at the Global Content Marketing Awards. It's the world's largest content marketing competition, and Investec's win places us ahead of some leading US and global brands. And so, if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time to follow Investec Focus Radio SA and hear why the world is tuning in. Now, let's get back to our conversation. Marc, let me return to you. Some say wealth managers are becoming obsolete in this fast world of artificial intelligence and robo advice. Others say the human role has never been more important. I think I probably know where you stand, but tell us anyway.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the answers don't agree. I think there's no doubt that AI is going to have a significant impact on our lives and the roles we play with our clients. There's no doubt that AI will enhance how we manage portfolios, how we can improve operational efficiencies, how we can make better decisions. But as we have alluded to along this whole podcast, understanding our clients and their needs is not a once-off event. We believe that through the life of our relations with our clients, we will continue to grow this knowledge and understand our clients better and improve on how we manage their portfolios in line with their needs. I keep on thinking about it. One can ask ChatGPT to design a portfolio based on how I'm feeling today, what my circumstances are, and I have no doubt that it will spin out something that's quite smart and quite useful. But we all know that our emotions and our goals change over time. And as wealth managers, being able to understand these and adapt accordingly is a critical element in our relationship and the value we can add our clients. I always say to our team, you may pick up something the client said over a coffee chat or a glass of wine, which makes you reconsider how you see their money and how you manage their portfolios. And I don't believe AI has that ability to do so. So we believe that the role of wealth managers is probably becoming more and more critical in this world. Goals of our clients will shift, but their values will persist. And that is a critical part of what we're understanding.
That's so true, all in the human moment and in the nuance, I suspect. Ali, you can add to that, I'm sure.
Yeah, Marc said it so beautifully, actually. But just to add, the AI world is obviously very new and a bit scary to many of us. I think the best wealth managers will succeed when they embrace AI to augment themselves. But equally so, I've actually just encountered a few examples recently where it can destroy relationships where used carelessly. It does take a human with human flaws and imperfections in language and tone to create the human connection. And too much use of AI can break trust very quickly. So believe you me, when you get a perfectly crafted birthday message at exactly 8 a.m. annually, every birthday, even if it looks like your wealth manager, beautifully dressed and perfectly on point, you will soon feel the insincerity of a deep fake. So yeah, we've just got to navigate this whole world quite carefully.
Ali, let me pivot slightly, and I just want to throw a figure out there. The upcoming intergenerational wealth transfer is estimated at $31 trillion by 2033, just around the corner, the greatest in history it's been described as. So how are older wealth creators managing the emotional complexities of relinquishing control alongside concerns about potential mismanagement and that impact of differing generational values and upbringing? And those have become so stark. How can the framework that the two of you alluded to a little earlier be used to navigate these tensions effectively? And tensions there will be.
Yeah, it's a great question and something that we are contemplating a lot at the moment in terms of how to speak to our clients across generations. And as we approach this wealth transfer, you're right, older generations face big emotional and practical challenges. Passing on wealth isn't just about money. It's also about identities, values, purpose. There are deep concerns about heirs mismanaging the wealth, and differing values these days add to the complexity. And our wealth framework, obviously what we've mentioned, divides the portfolio into safety, prosperity, and legacy, does help manage these tensions better. So in terms of safety, the older generations really want to protect core assets for their own security. They want to make sure that they feel safe. And then they worry about whether the next generation is actually going to respect their principles that built this wealth. And you can then, allocate the safety portion of the portfolio to low-risk assets to establish stability for the older generation's lifetime. There can be a lot more communication explaining the purpose of assets to successors. People should be involving heirs in decisions about the assets to help them gain experience. Where we want to encourage growth in the prosperity component, even for their lives, we need to make sure that the generational differences in vision and risk appetite come into play. Younger generations may prefer impact investing or emerging technologies, whereas elders might be more conservative. And to bridge the gap within the portfolios, you can allocate a portion of the portfolio for next-gen-led innovation. You can create committees with both generations to evaluate growth and opportunities together. In terms of what I was talking about earlier about the financial purpose and the money stories, you can actually have a money story conversation with both generations to create more of a shared understanding of what shaped the older generation and what's shaping the next generation. I think it's also important for older wealth creators to mentor the younger heirs in a safe environment while heirs are introducing new ideas around crypto and AI to the elders. And also the legacy component goes obviously beyond money. It's about family values, culture, aspirations, and generational differences can obviously cause friction. So when you are establishing family constitutions, having a lot of chats about passing it on responsibly, you can put in governments around mission statements to sustain a legacy across generations. So these are all things that can be brought in at various aspects of the framework. And by establishing or applying the wealth framework, families can turn the emotional complexities of wealth transfer into opportunities for dialogue, education, and unity. And this approach will help preserve wealth and enrich family cohesion and legacy for generations to come, which is a much better way than we formerly used to do it.
Folks, we're coming to the end of the conversation, and before we go, I just want to touch on investment approach. So Investec Wealth and Investment International is still fundamentally, Marc, an active manager. The question is, how do you balance the commercial imperative of active portfolio management with maybe the slower, more reflective, human-led advisory approach that we've been focusing on?
Yeah, Jeremy, it's a great question, and I think at our core, we are active investment managers with an in-depth global investment process. And that process allows us to formulate views of where we see opportunities, where we see the threats, what the various risk and return dynamics of all global and local investments and asset classes are. And we then feed those into our various portfolios and funds that we manage for our clients. But importantly, those are integral in ensuring that the solutions that we design for our clients' requirements ensure that those requirements, those goals, and those needs are fulfilled. So that active investment process is the cornerstone of everything we do. Because we believe that if we get that right, together with, as you alluded to, the slower, more reflective human-led advisory approach, we're then able to ensure that our clients' goals, values, and purpose all align with their money. So we remain active investment managers with that as our core fundamental philosophy and approach.
And that's where we're going to put a punctuation point. Alexandra Nortier, Marc Romberg, joint heads of wealth management at Investec Wealth and Investment International. To both of you, thank you so much for those insights. It's clear to me the future of wealth is less about accumulation, but as you both said, it's about intention, it's about meaning, and it's about impact. So thank you so much for joining us on this edition of No Ordinary Wednesday. If you enjoyed this conversation, please follow Investec Focus Radio SA wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time with more on how the world's big shifts are shaping how we live, invest and lead. Until then, goodbye from me, Jeremy Maggs, and the entire Focus Radio team.
The views expressed are those of the contributors at the time of publication and do not necessarily represent the views of the firm and should not be taken as advice or recommendations. Investec Limited and subsidiaries, authorized financial service providers, registered credit providers, and long-term insurer.